Chaos didn't arrive screaming in my life. He arrived quietly and revealed just how much I still lacked control. It was while studying Osome's path that I understood something uncomfortable. Chaos isn't the problem. The lack of emotional discipline is. Today, I'm going to show you how I learned to stay whole when everything around me falls apart. Stay with me until the end. A single change can transform how you react under pressure. When chaos revealed my automatic reactions, I always thought that reacting quickly was a sign of strength. For years, I prided myself on my ability to react instantly in stressful situations. A crisis at work, and I was already acting. A personal conflict, and I already had a ready answer. Disturbing news, and my opinion was already formed and being expressed. I saw this speed of reaction as an indicator of competence, of being in control, of being a person who doesn't freeze under pressure. I admired public figures known for their quick responses, for never being at a loss for words, for always having an immediate comeback. I thought hesitation was weakness, that pause meant confusion, that a truly strong person was one who knew exactly what to do instantly in any situation. This belief was reinforced by a culture that values quick decisions, immediate action, and treats reflection or pause as a luxury we cannot afford in an accelerated world. But then chaos arrived. Not the controlled chaos of predictable professional challenges, but true chaos, profound personal crisis, multiple simultaneous emergencies, situations with no obvious answer or quick solution. And it was in this intensified chaos that the truth about my quick reactions was brutally exposed. They weren't strength, they were uncontrolled reflexes. I wasn't responding consciously. I was reacting automatically, like a frightened animal with only 3 programmed options: fight, flight, or freeze. Under intense pressure, my reactions revealed completely automatic patterns I didn't even know I possessed. A tendency to enter hyperactive control mode, trying to micromanage everything, or collapse into anxious paralysis, or explode in anger directed at the wrong targets. There was no choice in these reactions, no awareness, just old programming running automatically when the system was overloaded. But the chaos only exposed how much I was still governed by impulses. The word governed was crucial. I wasn't in control of these impulses. They were in control of me. I discovered I had less free will than I imagined. Under enough pressure, automatic patterns took over completely. And these patterns often made situations worse instead of better. My automatic need to control everything alienated people who were trying to help. My tendency to collapse into anxiety prevented me from taking useful actions. My reactive anger created additional conflicts when there was already enough chaos. Each automatic reaction was, in retrospect, the exact opposite of what the situation actually needed. But at the moment, I had no space between stimulus and response to choose something different. Impulse arose, and I was already acting on it before any conscious thought occurred. Chaos was a brutal but necessary teacher because it removed all the illusions I held about my self-control. Under normal conditions, I could pretend to myself that I was in control because circumstances didn't push me hard enough to reveal that I was essentially reactive. But intense chaos pushes you beyond your performative capabilities and exposes your true nature. And my true nature, revealed under extreme pressure, was far less evolved than I liked to believe. I was a collection of conditioned reflexes, not a consciously choosing agent. And this humbling realization was also the beginning of true change, because you can't transform what you don't recognize. It was only when I clearly saw how much I was governed by automatic impulses that I could begin the work of developing true self-control. And it was then that I encountered Osome's teachings about remaining still inside, even when everything around is in chaotic motion. Osome and the discipline of remaining still inside Osome taught that the true test happens when everything tries to pull you away from yourself. She didn't talk about discipline as a list of rules or external behaviors that needed to be followed to the letter. For her, discipline was something much deeper and more subtle. the ability to keep your inner center intact when the outside world conspired to fragment it. It was about finding an anchor point within yourself that remained fixed, even when winds from all directions tried to uproot it. It wasn't about controlling the outside world. That would be impossible, but about cultivating a quality of presence that wouldn't disintegrate in the face of external pressures. While the world sped by, she remained steadfast, and that was power. I watched, fascinated, how Osome managed to be in the midst of chaos without being contaminated by it. Heated conversations, urgent crises, people losing their composure around her, none of it moved her from her inner center. It wasn't indifference, because she was completely present and attentive to everything that was happening. It wasn't coldness, because there was genuine compassion in her presence and in how she related to others. It was something different, something I still couldn't fully name, a quality of attention that didn't allow itself to be captured by the surrounding emotional turmoil, but that also didn't disconnect from reality. This firmness created a field around her that affected everyone who came near. Agitated people naturally slowed down around her, as if her calmness were contagious in an almost palpable way. Tense conversations found resolution more easily in her presence. Discussions that seemed endless suddenly revealed clear solutions, not because she actively mediated or imposed solutions, but because her own inner stability created a space where clarity could emerge organically. It was as if she were a stone in the middle of a turbulent river. The water continued to flow with all its force, but there was a fixed point around which everything else could reorganize itself, finding new paths instead of simply colliding and creating more chaos. Gradually, I began to understand that what Osome possessed was not a mystical gift or a special personality she was born with. It was the result of deliberate and consistent practice, of years cultivating this ability not to be swept away by her own internal states or external circumstances. She had learned to observe her thoughts and emotions without completely identifying with them, to create a space between stimulus and response where consciousness could operate. And this space, I later discovered, was where the whole difference lay between being controlled by life, simply being a leaf in the wind of circumstances, or having some genuine degree of sovereignty over one's own experience and over who one chooses to be at each moment. Emotion without discipline becomes weakness. Anger, fear, anxiety. I justified everything as a natural reaction. That's just how I am, I'd say, as if my emotional nature were a fixed, immutable entity, something I'd inherited genetically and simply had to live with for the rest of my life. Each outburst had its perfectly constructed, justifying narrative. So-and-so provoked me first. The situation was completely unfair. I had to defend my point of view. I had built an entire elaborate philosophy around the idea that suppressing emotions was unnatural and harmful, that true authenticity required expressing everything you felt at the exact moment you felt it, without filters or considerations of consequences. It was a convenient excuse to never have to do the hard work of truly getting to know myself, until I realized that uncontrolled emotion isn't authenticity. It's exposed and unprotected vulnerability. The difference is subtle but absolutely fundamental for anyone who truly wants to mature. Being authentic means having genuine and honest access to your feelings, fully acknowledging them, and then consciously choosing how, when, and if to express them in a way that serves both yourself and those around you. Being uncontrollably vulnerable means being completely held hostage by these feelings, letting them decide for you, without any conscious intervention, allowing any emotional breeze to push you in any direction like a boat without an anchor or rudder. I had confused raw emotional transparency with emotional maturity, when in reality, I was just being transparently immature and calling it a virtue to feel better. I began to observe patterns with brutal honesty for the first time in my life. Every time I completely gave in to an intense emotion without any filter or consideration, the consequences were painfully predictable. Sharp words I deeply regretted afterward. Rash decisions that needed to be painstakingly reversed. Important relationships damaged that required months of hard work to repair. The real cost of living completely at the mercy of my emotions was extremely high, far higher than I had ever consciously admitted. I had been paying this price for years without ever truly questioning it or doing the math, accumulating emotional debts that would one day have to be settled. Worse still, I had a pathological pride in this chaotic way of living, as if being intense and passionate and real were a badge of honor. Osome showed me a radically different perspective that challenged everything I believed about emotions. She didn't deny her emotions or try to suppress them as if they were enemies to be defeated in an endless internal battle. But neither did she allow herself to be blindly governed by them, as if they were absolute masters deserving immediate and unquestioning obedience. There was a space of lucid awareness observing emotional states, recognizing them clearly, even honoring their presence and the message they brought, but always maintaining the sovereign capacity to choose the wisest response. It was a delicate dance between fully feeling and acting consciously, something I had never even considered possible. Feeling angry is completely natural and even healthy in many situations, she once said with that characteristic serenity that intrigued me so much. Acting out of anger as if you had absolutely no choice in the matter, that's profound spiritual laziness. The phrase hit me like a direct punch to the gut, taking all the air from my lungs and leaving me defenseless. That was exactly what I had been doing for years. I had been profoundly emotionally lazy, always choosing the easiest and most immediate path of simply reacting, instead of the infinitely more difficult and laborious path of responding consciously. At that moment, I realized I had wasted years of my life being a slave to my own emotions while convincing myself that this was freedom. The invisible pause between stimulus and response. I learned not to react immediately, and that changed absolutely everything in my life. It sounds simple when said like that, almost too trivial to deserve attention. But this small change in behavior completely revolutionized my way of existing in the world and relating to everything around me. In the beginning, it was excruciating and painful. Every time something provoked me, my whole body instantly prepared for an automatic response, and I had to consciously hold back that impulse with all the strength I could muster. It was like trying to stop a moving train using only willpower, feeling the immense weight of inertia pushing against you. My jaw clenched violently, my muscles tensed like stretched ropes, words accumulated in my throat, demanding urgent release like prisoners wanting to escape. This small, silent space became my greatest weapon amidst the chaos that constantly surrounded me. With daily practice and much persistence, the pause ceased to be a titanic struggle against myself and became something more natural, almost a different reflex replacing the old one. In that interval of a few seconds, sometimes only 3 or 4, entire worlds could be explored within my consciousness. I could observe the emotions surging like a wave in the ocean, recognize its true origin in the depths of my personal history, assess whether the response it suggested truly served my long-term interests or only the immediate relief of tension. It was like finally having access to a control panel that had always been there inside me, but that I had never noticed or used because I was always frantically running on autopilot. What I discovered in that space surprised me deeply and taught me things that years of therapy hadn't been able to. Many of the things that provoked me so intensely weren't really about the present moment. They were distorted echoes of old wounds, patterns established in childhood and adolescence, deep insecurities constantly seeking confirmation in the external world. When someone criticized me in the present, it wasn't just that specific criticism that bothered me so much. It was a whole painful history of never feeling good enough, of always falling short of expectations. When I felt excluded from a situation, it wasn't just that isolated moment. It was the vulnerable boy inside me who always feared being left out, never chosen, eternally marginalized. The pause allowed me to see these overlapping layers of meaning, and seeing clearly meant not being completely controlled by them like a puppet. Osome poetically called it the eye of the storm, and the metaphor perfectly described the experience. Inside you, there's always a place that's at complete peace, she explained in that calm voice that seemed to come from a very deep place. No matter how intense the emotional storm is raging around your head and your heart, the real challenge isn't making the storm stop. Storms come and go naturally. That's part of human life. She paused deliberately, letting the words settle. The real challenge is to find and consciously inhabit that calm center, even when everything else inside and outside of you is in absolute turmoil. Little by little, session after session, conversation after conversation, I was learning to do exactly that. I discovered there was an observer within me, not a critical judge, but a conscious and serene presence that could witness thoughts and emotions without being immediately swept away by them like a shipwrecked person on the waves. This observer didn't deny or suppress anything. It simply observed with genuine curiosity. Ah, there's the anger rising again. Interesting. Where is it coming from this time? What is it really trying to tell me? And from this place of conscious, detached yet compassionate observation, my choices became truly my own for the first time in adulthood. I was no longer just blindly reacting to external stimuli like a conditioned animal. I was consciously responding as a mature human being who chooses who they want to be. The difference between these two ways of living was the difference between being a slave and being free, between living on autopilot and living with deliberate intention in every moment. How self-control changes the behavior of others. When I stopped losing control, something strange and unexpected changed around me. At first, I could barely perceive what was happening because I was so focused on the inner work, on the daily battle to maintain my center amidst the daily provocations and turbulence. But gradually, I began to notice subtle changes in how people reacted to my presence, as if my inner transformation was creating visible ripples in the external world. Conversations that used to escalate into intense conflicts suddenly found quicker and more peaceful resolutions, without me needing to do anything other than simply being present in a different way. It was as if my new way of being had altered some invisible dynamic governing my interactions, changing the rules of the game without anyone needing to explicitly announce it. People began to carefully choose their words when speaking to me, and that was revealing. Those who had previously provoked me easily, who knew exactly which buttons to push to make me explode, suddenly became more cautious, more thoughtful before speaking. It wasn't fear. I hadn't become threatening or intimidating in any obvious way, but something more subtle and profound. It was as if they unconsciously realized that their old tactics no longer worked, that they could no longer throw me off balance or make me dance to their tune. Some seemed confused by this change, occasionally testing the limits as if to confirm whether my transformation was real or just temporary. Others, the more perceptive ones, naturally adjusted. Their way of relating to me, finding new patterns of interaction that were more mature and respectful, because they could no longer destabilize me as easily as before, and that completely changed the power dynamic. For years, I had given other people tremendous control over me without realizing it. Every time I reacted explosively to a provocation, I was essentially handing over my emotional control to someone else. It was as if I had a big red button on my forehead that said, "Press here to cause chaos." And some people loved pressing that button just to see the show, to feel the power of being able to manipulate me emotionally. But now the button had been disconnected, or rather, I had learned not to react when it was pressed. And that completely frustrated those who depended on my reactions to feel powerful. Some people even lost interest in interacting with me because they no longer got the drama or validation they sought. What was most fascinating was observing how my calmness forced others to confront their own emotional patterns. When someone arrived agitated and explosive, expecting me to enter the same state to validate their agitation, and instead encountered a serene and centered presence, something interesting happened. Many naturally disarmed themselves, as if my refusal to participate in the drama compelled them to question whether the drama was truly necessary. It was like holding up a mirror. My stability reflected their instability back to themselves, making it impossible to ignore or project onto me. Some were initially irritated by this, feeling judged even though I didn't utter a word of judgment, because my simple, calm presence exposed the contrast between how they were being and how they could be. Osome had predicted this with surgical precision. When you stop dancing to other people's chaotic dance, two things happen. She raised a finger. First, you discover who is truly interested in genuine connection and who was just addicted to the drama and emotional intensity you provided. She raised a second finger. Second, you become a silent invitation for others to find their own center, simply by being anchored in yours. I was seeing both predictions come true daily. Some friendships based on toxic dynamics naturally dissolved because there was no more fuel to feed them. And while that was painful, it was also liberating. Other relationships deepened in ways I never imagined possible because there was finally room for genuine vulnerability, instead of just dramatic intensity disguised as emotional depth. True discipline, choosing who you are in the chaos. Osome did not seek peace as an ultimate goal to be achieved and maintained eternally. She didn't talk about eliminating the chaos of life or creating a perfectly tranquil existence where nothing would ever disturb or challenge her. That would be a childish fantasy, a denial of the very nature of human existence, which is inherently unpredictable and full of turbulence. What she sought was something much deeper, more substantial, and truly transformative: absolute inner sovereignty. It was about cultivating a sense of self so deeply rooted, so fundamentally solid, that no external storm could shatter it or cause you to become completely lost. It wasn't about controlling the world outside. That's impossible, and trying to do so only generates more suffering, but about having complete mastery over who you choose to be, regardless of what happens around you. Today, even when everything seems chaotic and out of control, I consciously choose not to lose myself. Situations that once would have shattered me into emotional fragments now find within me a presence that can witness them without being destroyed by them. It's not that I no longer feel anger, fear, or anxiety. These feelings still appear, sometimes with considerable intensity, but now there is a space between feeling and action, between impulse and response. I've learned that the chaos around me doesn't define who I am. It only reveals who I choose to be when the masks fall and the usual defenses no longer work. Each difficult moment has become a test, not of how much I can endure before breaking, but of how deeply I have established my inner sovereignty. This invisible discipline has fundamentally changed my relationships, my work, and my relationship with myself. People notice when you can no longer be easily manipulated or destabilized. Some respect this and approach you. With more authenticity, others distance themselves because they have lost the power they had over you. At work, decisions that were once clouded by emotional storms now emerge from a place of clarity, even under intense pressure. But perhaps the most profound change is internal. I finally know the man I am when everything falls apart, and I am no longer ashamed of him. He is not perfect. He doesn't always react in the ideal way, but he consciously chooses instead of being chosen by circumstances. And that makes all the difference between living as a victim or as the protagonist of one's own story. The path Osome showed me has no finish line or endpoint where you declare complete victory. Each day brings new tests, new opportunities to choose between reacting automatically or responding consciously, between being swept away by the current or keeping your center in the middle of it. Some days are easier than others. Some provocations still find vulnerable points that I thought I had fortified. But the fundamental difference is that now I know I have a choice, that there is a space where my consciousness can operate, and that knowledge alone is liberating. The journey continues. The practice never ends. But each moment of inner sovereignty gained validates the path and inspires me to continue deepening it. If this journey resonated with you, If you too are tired of being a prisoner of your own reactions and want to discover your inner sovereignty, leave a comment below sharing your biggest challenge when it comes to self-control. What situation or person still manages to throw you off balance? Let's build a community of people committed to this profound transformation. And if you want to continue exploring Osome's teachings and discover how to apply this invisible discipline to all areas of your life, subscribe to the Geisha Path channel and turn on notifications. Here we share practical insights weekly on how to cultivate inner strength, emotional sovereignty, and mindful presence amidst modern chaos. See you in the next video, where we'll explore how this inner discipline manifests in our most intimate relationships. Until then, practice the invisible pause.